This podcast is a glimpse into the lives of women. And despite their life's obstacles and challenges, they have knocked down barriers and became successful in their chosen careers and in their life. And I have the pleasure of having Dr. Runako Whittaker in the building with me today. How are you doing today, Dr. Runako?
I am great. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I've been trying to get to you and finally did, and I am so happy that you graced us with your presence. So I appreciate you. And so one of the first things I like to start off with by asking is, what is one hidden gem that you have that nobody really knows about?
A hidden gem. Oh, let's see. Well, I was going to say, this is probably not so hidden because I post on Facebook about this a lot, but I am an avid Peloton spin cycler. So I have a Peloton bike, and that I use that as my stress relief. And so, yeah, I think that's it.
Speaking of stress relief, I'm sure over the last 3 years now with the pandemic, how has life changed for you?
Well, it has changed significantly, particularly at work, having to go to work wearing a mask. Recently, the mask mandates have pretty much been, lifted, for public spaces. But in being in healthcare, I still wear a mask at work because as a pediatrician, I'm coming in contact with still vulnerable patients, particularly younger than age 5, because the vaccine for COVID is available for 5 and older. But I deal with newborn infants all the way up to age 18. So I still, in that under 5 age group, they don't have a vaccine available for them yet. So I still have to do all that I can to protect them. And, we've had to make adjustments to our scheduling. Personally, when the pandemic first happened, all I did literally was go to work and come home, didn't have much interaction with, friends and family other than being on Zoom. But now that, we are further along in this pandemic, I have been able to reconnect with friends and family. My immediate family, my parents and my sister and her family, they all live in Seattle. So during that first year of the pandemic, I didn't get to see them for a whole year, or more than a year. I have been able to reconnect with them. I've been able to go back home. Recently, I had a great niece that was born, so I got a chance to go back and see her. So that's been the greatest thing, is being able to reconnect with friends and family.
Definitely. So being a doctor, when did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
So I knew in high school, and it was my 10th grade year of high school, after taking a genetics class. And I haven't been able to share with the teacher of that class. Her name is Mrs. Sharon Massey. And for those who don't know, I am not from Oklahoma. I'm from Seattle, Washington. So I went to high school there at Garfield High School. And I took this genetics class after getting out of a marine biology class that I just absolutely hated. I mean, to the point where I was coming home in tears every day after class. And I told my mom, I was like, I can't do this. I don't like it. I have to do something else. So it was that period of time where you could, still switch your classes. And Mrs. Massey had an opening in her genetics class, and she let me in. And from then on, I loved everything about the biological sciences. And it was then, after taking her class, that I decided I wanted to be a doctor, to combine my love of science with my love of working with children. So I always give her that credit. And I've, been able to tell her on a couple of occasions that, because she let me into that genetics class, that opened up a whole new world for me.
Wow. So what has your journey been like? So once you left high school and you went over into college, did you already start dabbing into the medical field, or was that just strictly like, what was your undergrad studies like?
So I was a biology major in undergraduate. And I went to college in Atlanta at Clark Atlanta University, one of our historically Black colleges. But I was a biology major, and I was blessed to be able to attend college on a full tuition paid room and board scholarship through this program called the Howard Hughes Scholars Program. So went through that program and did very well. I did become involved in like the Pre-Professional Health Society, where that was for people who are interested in health careers. So it wasn't just medicine, but medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, those careers. And did a lot of mentoring to, high school and elementary school kids, with science. So after graduating from college, of course, went on to medical school. But let me back up a little bit. Even in high school, I did some shadowing opportunities with local physicians. I knew that I wanted to go into pediatrics, so I spent some time with local pediatricians. And then I did spend one summer doing volunteer work at the Children's Hospital in the on the cancer floor, cancer center, and doing the play therapy department, because I figured if I can spend time around children who are, really ill or possibly terminally ill, and I know that I still want to do this, then I know then pediatrics is what I want to do.
You seem like you've had a lot of times people don't have that experience to know that that's what they want to, that's what they really want to do or get involved with until after they've gone to school, after they've done internships, after they get into the actual job, and like, okay, this is not what I thought it would be. So your journey of what you're telling me, you got the experience like early on. Your experiences kind of prepared you for whatever was to come, and you were able to make that decision of, okay, yeah, this is the path that I want.
Right. Yes.
Everybody doesn't get that opportunity. So you are very, in a sense, you were placed in a position to where you were able to make that decision and keep moving forward, because hey, this is what I really want to do. So I want people to see your journey and how you maneuver that. So what are some obstacles that you encountered along your path as far as on your way to becoming Dr. Runako Whittaker?
So my path was pretty smooth sailing until I got to medical school. So I did well in high school. I did well in college, and got to medical school, and I had some challenges. And, I'll be very transparent and let people know that I failed some courses in medical school. And medical school is, 4 years, but I took 5 years to get through medical school because of courses that I failed, I had to repeat. So of course I had to tack on an extra year to get through school. And that was a very humbling experience for me because, like I said, high school and college, was no problem for me. And then I get to medical school and, I failed not one course, but 2, 3 in my preclinical years, the first 2 years where you're in the classroom, studying your basic medical sciences, anatomy, physiology, and those things, and learning the history taking and exam taking skills before you go into your clinical years of being in the hospitals and clinics working with actual patients. So in those preclinical years were pretty tough, having, to repeat those courses. But I had a very supportive group of friends, a very supportive roommate, who's gone on to be a very successful orthopedic surgeon herself. But having, the support of family, friends, and with them behind me, knowing that even if I decided like, I can't do this, I just, wanted to give up, they still would have supported me. But my mother always told me anything in life worth having, you're going to have to work for it. So even with that mindset, I said, okay, I have had these obstacles, but that doesn't mean that I can't do this. I can't overcome these obstacles. So, regrouping, getting over the shame of having failed, because I felt like I was, a failure, that I let my family down. After I got over that and I said, okay, look, you can do this. And I, did what I had to do. I had to retake those courses. I, reached out to people that could, tutor me. At some point, I figured out that I developed a testing anxiety. And so I met with a hypnotherapist that helped me work through that so that I could get over that hurdle of freezing up when it came time, to take tests. So, once I, got through that, I met the challenge head on. Then it, it was, I won't say it became easier after that, but it became more manageable after that, because I continued to have, challenges with taking exams, the licensing exams to be a physician, my board exams. So I just kept on. Each time that I got knocked down, I didn't stay down. I just got back up. I cried my tears, but I didn't stay there. I didn't, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So I cried, the tears that I had to get out. And then once that, I got through that, then I said, okay, you gotta get to work. You gotta keep going.
So I would definitely say you had to exercise your resilience gene.
Yes, I had to develop resiliency first, because like I said, prior to medical school, everything just kind of came easy for me. So I didn't have to develop that resiliency until I was really faced with, something hard.
And with you saying that makes me think about how when you fail at something, it's almost frowned upon, as opposed to saying failure is a part of the process.
Exactly.
That you keep on going. And so being in personal development, it's like you said, you didn't stay down. You got knocked down, but you didn't stay down. It's like they say, you fell forward.
Yes.
And so
yes.
somebody that's wanting to become a doctor, what is some advice that you would give to them as to how to start their path?
So the first thing I would say is, once you decide you want to become a doctor, seek out a physician that as a mentor, because mentoring is very important, because you're going to need the guidance and advice from someone who has been down that path. So seeking out a mentor, whether it's, if it's someone in your family or a close friend of the family, or, even if it's, your own. I've even had, patients of mine who have, said, oh, I'd like to be a doctor, specifically a pediatrician. And so, they've, I've given them some opportunities to come and shadow me. So, it's whether it's through friend relationships, family relationships, seeking out a mentor would be the first thing. And the second thing is to be flexible, because I've been a physician now. Let's see, I finished a residency in 2003. So at 19 years out of residency. And I always knew that I wanted to be a pediatrician, but medicine has changed significantly within these, 20 years. And from when I decided that I wanted to be a physician. So I have several, colleagues who are doing things outside of clinical medicine. So because medicine, the landscape of medicine has changed so much, a lot of physicians are experiencing burnout, and that, was heightened and increased, during the pandemic. I mean, it was happening prior to that, but it was, exacerbated by the pandemic. So a lot of physicians are, getting out of, clinical medicine, seeing, patients in the hospitals and clinics. So they're, shifting. They might be doing something totally opposite from medicine, or some are still doing, utilizing their degree, but it's, maybe they're working in a consult capacity, or they're writing books, or they're lecturing, or they're being a coach. So I would say also be flexible, and to always now think about having multiple streams of income. Even as a physician, physicians are now seeing that they're going to need other streams of income, because reality is now that, physicians are in certain areas are being phased out of their jobs. And you would never think that, as a physician, you would always have a job. But there's this kind of mindset that, you can hire people, they're called mid-levels. And I'll just say, those are like nurse practitioners, physician assistants. They are a valuable part of the medical team. So, I mean, I know several nurse practitioners. I have a nurse practitioner within my own practice. So they are part of the medical team. But in some areas of medicine, there's this thinking that they can replace physicians instead of working beside physicians. And it's really coming down to dollars and cents. So, it's more economical to hire a mid-level as opposed to a physician. And it's not a one-to-one exchange. Okay. So that's kind of a discussion for another day. But because of that, happening, that coupled with physician burnout, physicians are realizing, hey, this may not be the career that I will retire from. If I retire from this, then, hey, it'll be on my terms. I don't want to be forced out. So, partnering your career as a physician with your love of something that you do as a hobby, that's something to think about as well. And, that also, saving up money, developing good financial habits, now, or, even before you get into your career, developing those good financial habits.
Wow. Now, this news is blowing me away, what you just said, of the terrain and how it has changed so much. It almost sounds like it's like most other careers, that via working at home, or people not going back to work, people creating their own entrepreneurial journeys and starting their own companies from home, and phase it out. I would never think a hands-on job would be to that point.
Yeah, it is. And, even medicine, there's telehealth now, where you can have a video visit, with your doctor, by video. And that's, the future of, I'm like, probably 10, 15 years ago, that was not even a thought.
No.
But, just the way things change in the evolution now, thankfully, the pandemic, that, telehealth was kind of a saving grace, because, we didn't in the beginning, we didn't know anything or much about COVID. And so we had to, really stay separate, but you still needed to take care of patients. So having that, telehealth was important. And, it's not, you can't replace, medicine tradition, the way it's been practiced completely, but it's just, in addition to. So yeah, even, being, hands-on as a physician, when I went to medical school, that's something I never even dreamed of or imagined. But you know, here I am all these many years later, and yeah, I see patients in the office and through video chats.
Wow. So is there anything about your journey to be a physician and running your own practice that you would have done differently had you known?
Had I known. So the thing that I probably would have done differently is, now, you know, I went to an HBCU for undergraduate. I probably would have gone to an HBCU medical school as well. Because, I mean, now there are four, that's Morehouse School of Medicine, Meharry Medical College, Howard University, and Charles Drew University. And soon there will be a fifth one. Xavier University in Louisiana will be, they are coming out with a medical school, but that's years away. So that would be one thing that I would have done differently, because of that HBCU environment, the, you know, smaller class size. And although, you know, class sizes in medical school are smaller compared to college undergraduate, but just that HBCU environment is much more smaller and close knit, and you have just, you know, kind of a better support system. So that probably would have been one thing, but other than that, I don't think I would have done anything different. I wouldn't have changed the field of medicine that I chose. I still would choose pediatrics all over again. And there isn't really anything else that I would have done differently.
Wonderful. Well, you are to be commended for the work that you do. So what's some advice that you would give a younger version of you?
Oh, wow. Okay. That's an interesting question.
Your younger self. How about that?
Right. Give to my younger self. Well, I guess, you know, just some of the advice that I was, you know, giving out before about, you know, the multiple streams of income, is I probably would have actually planned for that. If I were talking to my younger self, just, you know, plan to do something else outside of medicine, you know, that could, you know, generate, you know, extra income, not to just, even if it's something you do as a hobby, you know, because people turn their hobbies into a stream of income all the time. So that's probably what I would say to my younger self.
What are some goals that you have? I know you talked about the terrain has changed, but as far as the medical field for you, what are some things that you are looking forward to, that you're planning for, because you are a doctor and you have the expertise to do so, that you're able to kind of move into other things that possibly you can move into, since you talk about the several streams of income, but just like anything else, sometimes you want to just move into something else anyway. So what are some things that you are considering possibly to move into?
Well, one thing that I have always wanted to do, and I've talked about this forever, is, and I don't know if I would be doing this necessarily as a stream of income, but just one thing that I've always wanted to do is to write a children's book. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but I am going to make that happen one day. So yes, I would like to write a children's book, but specifically with my practice, one thing that I would like to do is to really transform the practice into what we would truly call a medical home. So a medical home is, you know, traditionally, or way it is set up now, is like your PCP, your primary care physician, and you go to your primary care physician not just for your primary and preventive care, but then your primary care physician is supposed to, you know, coordinate any care that you need to go see this specialist and that specialist. Well, I want to kind of bring some of those specialty services under one roof as much as possible. So things like, now, one thing that I have done is I have brought mental health care within my practice. I have a psychiatrist that works with my practice because, and, again, the pandemic, has really shed the light on, the importance of mental health access, not just for adults, but for kids and adolescents. And so if you have that coupled with, a physician's office, one, that increases the access to mental health care. Instead of like going to your primary doctor and then you've got to be referred to, the psychiatrist or the therapist. And, that takes time. And that's a function of our current, healthcare system. So, one way to kind of, go around that is if you have it already embedded within your practice, then it makes that access much easier. So, I've done that with mental health, and I want to do that with other things like nutrition. I, have a nutritionist on as part of the practice, because childhood obesity is such a huge epidemic in this country. And so, I can only do so much nutrition education within a, 15, 20-minute office visit. But if my patients have access to a nutritionist, that, okay, let's go, 2 doors down and talk to Mr. or Ms., whoever, and get the information you need. So I want to make it more of a kind of a holistic practice in that sense, where you can just come to your primary care, office for as many services as possible, instead of having to go outside of your primary office.
I'm like envisioning what that looks like. And that would be so great, because so many people, you start at one appointment and you have to wait 2-3 weeks and go to another spot, as opposed to you can have them all scheduled in one day.
Yeah.
And be in one building. And I mean, good Lord, that, especially with gas prices, who wants to travel?
Right.
That's a whole other subject. But having that care, and what would you say, holistic? And my thing is, I just vision a wraparound service. You wrap all the services that are needed in order to help a person become healthy and live a productive life. I mean, that is a goal. That is a vision. Now I'm thinking about it. 3-story building. Okay,
okay. You from your lips to God's ears.
Therapies, physical, all kind of things. Because yes, I do. You do have to go to 5 buildings for certain things in different times or whatever, all around town. That is an idea. I want to see that come to light, because that is needed.
Yeah,
it's definitely needed. Good for you.
And by the time you get, run to this appointment and that appointment from, this end of town or that end of town, you're exhausted. And then you're just like, so then when something else comes around, you think like, oh gosh, I've got to go through this again. And like, I get it. I get it. So
you in the trench, girl, you in the trench. Well, I commend you for all that you do. You've taken care of my kids and so many other ones. They are grown now. Can't go see Runako. But you
like no little babies anymore.
Oh no, but you've taken such good care of them and the other kids, and I see your passion, and I applaud you for all the things that you have done and are doing for the families that you take care of. Just keep on going, Runako, and people need to see what you are doing and how you're doing it, and know that they can do it too. Becoming a doctor is such a so-called daunting task for so many, but I wanted people to hear your story and how you came to be.
Well, thank you. I'm always happy to share, because, there were people who came before me who did it. And, so now I have to, pay it forward and give back, because I know that my story will, inspire someone, or, someone who, if there's a college student or even a medical student who, might be struggling, and and hear that, oh gosh, well, she failed courses and she still became a doctor, then that will hopefully give them the fuel to continue to, push through. Because, really, if you think about it, even the most successful people failed. No, and nobody goes through life to do anything without failing at some point in time. And it doesn't matter how many times you fail, whether it's once, twice, 100 times, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you learn from those failures and what you do after those failures. And always remember too that, you don't have to go this journey alone. Reach out for help. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness. You have to reach out for help, and, partner with people, who are stronger in one area where you may not be as strong. So that's really kind of the takeaway, is that, there is no success without failure, and that you have to, reach out to people and forge those, develop those relationships and those bonds with people that, are like-minded and will support you along your journey.
Yes, indeed. Fail forward, fail often is what they say. Failure is not highlighted, but failure is a part of the process. And failure makes you stronger, believe it or not.
Yes, it does. It does. It really does.
And people don't highlight that, but the successful people know that failure is a part of it. So for you to even shed light on that, that's something that's not talked about enough. And that's where people give up the most, is that they failed and they think that's it. But you are an example of, when you fail, just keep on going. And so people need to hear that part of your story. So I again commend you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and for doing the wonderful things that you do, and for representing, being a woman of color who's out there making a difference on the front line in the sense of the healthcare crisis that we've been having in our nation and in our communities. You are on the front line, and you are to be commended. So I appreciate your time. You keep on going. And I thank you so much for joining me on the Life Design Podcast. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for having me. And you keep doing what you're doing too, because you're in there inspiring women all over. So I commend you for the work that you're doing too.
Thank you, Runako. Have a great evening.
All right. Bye-bye.